Advanced Marketplace welcomes you to this webinar series highlighting the importance of having a configuration management system, CMDB. This series will demonstrate areas to leverage a CMDB and gain valuable insight while supporting numerous IT functions into your organization. During this webinar series, we will feature HP software products to illustrate the value of these concepts, but similar successes can be achieved through the integration of numerous tools available today. There are 4 sections to this series, and the following topics will be covered. Application mapping in a CMDB. Utilizing CMDB for change and release control. How a CMDB supports efficient business service management, runtime service model. Improve application performance and quality with a CMDB. Application lifecycle management. This is the 4th presentation in a 4-part series covering improve application performance and quality with a CMDB. Application lifecycle management.
Welcome to this recorded webinar. I'm Joey Howe, Senior Solution Architect for Advanced Marketplace. Today I'm going to be discussing HP UCMDB and why it's important to quality assurance. First, a little bit about Advanced Marketplace, or AMP. We're a business solution provider that delivers solutions which transform our clients' business environments and help them stay ahead of a rapidly evolving technology landscape. We're headquartered in Tampa, Florida, and we have consultants nationwide. You may be able to tell by my accent that I'm not a Floridian. I'm actually based out of Charlotte, North Carolina, and my personal experience is over a decade in application delivery and quality assurance across many different industries. For our consultants, we have expertise from application lifecycle management, IT operations, security, training, and support. But really what I'm here to discuss today is HP UCMDB. A lot of quality assurance folks may be thinking, what is HP UCMDB? I've never heard of the product. I'm not really sure how it relates to quality assurance. So I'm going to just level set with the QA folks out there that may want to first understand what HP UCMDB is. So HP Universal Configuration Management Database is what UCMDB stands for. It's essentially a system of record for all components of an IT infrastructure. Its purpose is to provide unparalleled visibility into what those components are, how they relate to each other, give a consistent, reliable view of what IT is delivering. If there's any disruptions, that visibility is going to help see what's changing, what's being disrupted, what's maybe not meeting its service availability. It gives us a better way to track, manage, and control all the IT infrastructure. One of its also foundation goals is to really help reduce mean time to repair recovery for applications that are running in production. So how and why for QA? That last line really around understanding IT infrastructure and reducing mean time to resolution for production applications is important. But it's not just production applications that QA is worried about. Really, we want to see the same thing. We want to see the visibility into our infrastructure. A lot of the times our QA organizations are working with partner groups for test lab management, essentially. And at the same time, while we're not really supporting production environments, if we look at what we're managing across the board, they may be smaller, but we have a lot more of those test environments, which we kind of carve up into swim lanes so that we can promote our code as we test it until it reaches a level of completion that where we're going to promote it into production. So what does that mean? Well, essentially it means the exact same thing for QA organizations that it means for IT operations, right? We need that visibility into our environments. We need to understand the control, the configuration, and the changes that are happening in our testing swim lanes. The next thing that I want to really just point out is we talk a little bit about UCMDB and how it delivers upon helping reduce mean time to recovery and repair for production environments. Well, that's also going to be true in test environments. That's the goal of QA, is to understand what those bugs are, what those failures are, and help reduce them as quick as possible so that we can get more code promoted and promote that code in a faster release. We can also look at things like understanding compliance initiatives. So, QA, just along with anybody else in an IT environment that is under compliance, needs to have that visibility, right? It's not about just testing and results on those tests. It's also proving in a compliance model that we understood what we were testing against, that we understood why we were testing, and being able to document all of those things. UCMDB also allows us to accelerate the application and data center transformation projects. And what I mean by that is we're still going through a period of application transformation. When we think about things like cloud environments, application modernization, updating applications from older technologies to newer technologies, moving applications from mainframe to other data centers and maybe even the cloud, etc. That's what I'm talking about with application transformation. And when we think about that and the number of changes that are being made when we're going from something that's old and we're comfortable with to something that may be brand new and has a lot of configurable items that we're not used to, UCMDB gives us the ability to understand what we're setting, what we're configuring, and track those changes throughout the application modernization project. So why is that important? It really is a foundation that QA does not have that visibility like a production counterpart may, because they are not aware of UCMDB. So really that's where I'm here to describe what the UCMDB is for the QA organization, and if they have these pain points, maybe how we can help them connect with their counterpart teams and operations and have that visibility and really conjoin the IT infrastructure from an operations standpoint and a pre-production standpoint and kind of merge how these tools are utilized across the organization. So the next topic that I want to discuss really is affecting everybody, and that's going to be our delivery methodology. Specifically, Agile delivery methodology. A lot of organizations have already adopted Agile. A lot of organizations are moving to Agile. So we really wanted to discuss Agile delivery and why UCMDB is going to be important. Really, it's to help understand why UCMDB is important is we need to really look at our different organizations, both from an application pre-production standpoint. That's going to be our development teams, our quality assurance teams, and everyone that's managing those pre-production environments, and also our IT operations, right? What do we currently have running in production, and how is it running? Well, why is that important? If we look at the difference between, our pre-production environment, the purpose of Agile is to help us be more agile, right? Deliver faster, constant change. If we shift gears and look over on the production side, in our IT operations space, they have the complete opposite understanding, which is change is evil, right? If it's running great, leave it alone. Don't make a change. We don't want to break anything. That's kind of their methodology that they're looking at. So you can see there's obvious differences between how pre-production and delivery operate versus IT operations. So how do we bridge that gap? Why is UCMDB important for bridging that gap? Well, really the keys to bridging the gap is around quality, automation, and collaboration. And I don't mean around the code itself or the application that we're delivering. What we're looking at is quality of work, right? How well are we doing our role? So from a quality standpoint, the key here is understanding what we're working on. And that's really the purpose of Discovery and UCMDB, and being able to document and deliver that. So automation. Well, why is automation important also to help bridge this gap? Well, with all the constant change and the number of configurable items that we deal with on a day-to-day basis, We can't do this by hand. We can't do this on spreadsheets. If you're currently doing the work on spreadsheets, you know how much time and effort is being spent on managing those configurable items, that as-built view of IT operations. So automation is important because we are well aware that we can't do this on paper. We can't do this with paper and pen. That's why we facilitate this solution, which is to allow for discovery, for visibility and reporting of our applications and application components to be automated with the tool itself. And then the third key to really bridge the gap is collaboration. That's what UCMDB is there for. That's why I'm here to educate quality assurance who may not be aware of the tool. It's so that we can help reinforce this collaboration between Agile delivery and IT operations, so that we have a consistent view of what our IT environment really is, both in pre-production and in production. Okay, for a demonstration of some of the concepts that we discussed in the presentation, I'm going to show you HP's Business Service Management. Not many QA organizations are going to be necessarily familiar with this product set. They spend most of their day-to-day activities in HP Application Lifecycle Management, Quick Test Professional, Load Runner, Performance Center, etc. This would be more what your counterparts in operations would be using to manage production-based systems, but there are a lot of components that are shared between the product sets. Specifically, we're going to talk about some of the integrations that exist between pre-production environments and production environments, and how the data technically can be shared between both systems in order to manage the overall IT infrastructure. First, I'm going to log into HP's Business Service Management. I'm just going to use my administrator account, and we'll get started with the normal screen that an operations member would see upon logging into HP's Business Service Management. So very similar to how some of the tools in application lifecycle management are organized in a modular fashion, they have a very similar feel in HP's Business Service Management. If you look closely, you may see some familiar options also present in this screen. Mainly some of the integration points with ALM and Performance Center, such as diagnostics, site scope for system availability management, and then even some of the themes such as transaction management and end user management. Of course, for us in the QA world, this would be the transactions that we're looking to test. So that would be test cases that map to business requirements and test requirements, very similar to the transactions that we want to make sure our end users are using once the production system goes live. First, let's start with a high level, end user management. So end user management, very similar to what we're doing as we test in our pre-production environment. We want to ensure that the end user is having a good experience on our application. Once the application's in production, we're doing the same thing in operations. We want to ensure that our application is available, it's performing well, and it's doing what it's supposed to do. So how do we do that with end user management in HPBSM? I'm going to jump over to the admin so we can dive into a little bit more about what end user management is. This is the default screen that an operations member would see when they're setting up and configuring end user management against an application. A couple of things I'd want to point out here. First is the wizard screen. This is out of the box default, end user management administration, and it describes what we're trying to do as far as managing and monitoring end user behavior. First, let's talk about some of the application components here. First and foremost, there is a business application involved. There's some type of application, some type of experience that we want to monitor. Below that, you see the CI collection. So this is an optional CI collection. I'm going to take a moment to stop and discuss what that means. As we discussed in the presentation, the CI is a representation of everything that is involved or can be represented in our IT infrastructure. It is true that this is an optional component to do end user management, but I want to take a moment to really discuss with you why this is important. This is what we talked about in the beginning with the presentation material and why UCMDB and the information around CIs is important. Basically, UCMDB is feeding CI information over to HPBSM. What we gain from that is very similar to the traceability with our requirements, test cases, and defects in ALM, except it is showing traceability and potential impact between the CI and the CI components. So if you look lower down, especially within user management, where we're monitoring and maintaining the health of a business transaction through some type of business transaction flow, you can see where CI information could become available. If we have that collection as part of our application model, we can immediately, in the event that we had an impact to our infrastructure, let's say we lost a host or maybe a cluster of WebSphere, well then, because we have the understanding and traceability with the CIs, we can automatically really understand real-time, pseudo-real-time, which business transactions are actually affected, if any, because we lost a piece of our infrastructure. So the next thing I'd like to point out here is you can see, if you look over to the left, that we have in-user monitors running now for our Advantage banking application, our HR management application, and a mobile application. Both BPMs and real user monitors. BPMs are being business process monitors or synthetic transactions. So why QA may find this important is understanding of the technology. Just like we share components of the BSM stack for monitoring purposes and ALM and Performance Center, we do the same in BSM. We lend technologies, specifically Virtual User Generator and Quick Test Professional, as scripting engines so that these synthetic transactions can be built and run in a scheduled manner so that we get the end user response from the business transactions reported back to business service management. So once we have this built out, and I'm not going to take you through the exercises of building out one, we have some that are predefined. I'm going to show you what that looks like as it would represent itself to Operations Center. So we'll jump over to the application side. I'm just going to go to my BSM where we have some components built out. So once this is assembled with the CI data intact, we've shared our resources from a business process standpoint with the operations team, and they've created business process monitors and are even picking up on real user transactions. We get a very centralized view of all the data that our application is consuming, both from a synthetic standpoint and a real user transaction standpoint. So with the CI information, we can tell very quickly how the application is arranged and traced by components. So it gives us this very clean spider view of what's going on from a transaction level. It also is showing us pseudo real-time information. So as fast as we can process and assemble the information, we have a view over how our application is responding. So the spider view will show you kind of all the different transactions that our end users are going through, and of course we can really drill down into all the individual metrics around volume, application performance, system availability, etc. So the last thing I want to point out is, why is this important for QA? And really the foundation is these tools are integrated, and having the right processes and the right procedures in place, working with your counterpart organizations, are going to make everybody's lives day-to-day easier, especially when problems are occurring with our applications. So let's look at some of the integration with ALM. Let's switch over to admin and integrations for the BSM stack, and you can see that there's a component, as soon as these render, a component of application lifecycle management integration. So this is why UCMDB and operations data, both from an IT standpoint of production systems and even pre-production systems, are going to be important to BSM and ALM. We have the ability to take the similar data that's utilized on both platforms and export them and import them to and from ALM environment. The mechanism for accomplishing the export or import is the ETL, so export, transform, and load. Basically, the tool itself is going to handle the transformation process for you, so it's really just a matter of exporting or importing our data file. To accomplish this, it's as simple as picking, once again, one of the CIs or application models. In this instance, I'm going to pick the Advantage banking application. I can establish a time frame, so maybe I wanted to see what a day in the life of over a period of a week is going to be against Advantage Online Banking. So it'll set the parameters, and then I have a choice of downloading or emailing a zip file. I'm just going to go ahead and download, and we'll hit generate. And then as soon as we're done, we have a file, and I'm going to just go ahead and save this to a temporary location. It'll give us a kind of a export of any problems that it may have ran into when it was collecting the information. But essentially, we have some aggregated data missing from our site scope monitors. No big deal there for just demo. But now we have a pretty file that has all the transaction information, monitor information associated with a week for Advantage Banking that we can now dump into ALM and process specifically in the Performance Center side around how many users really hit an application, what was the health of the application, and it gives us a better view and cuts down on the number of assumptions that we make when we test an application component. So from a high level, that is some of the information that I wanted to share with you around integrations from the QA space, specifically with Business Service Management and HP UCMDB. So we talked a little bit about UCMDB and the information that it provides and how valuable that data can be. Let's look at how that data can be leveraged in the QA space, specifically some of the information in application lifecycle management and how it pertains to the QA organization. Starting with HP Application Lifecycle Management 11.5, new functionality was added for lab management, specifically provisioning a lab environment and deploying test sets against that provisioned environment. So this is really around true continuous delivery automation. First, we'll start in the lab management configuration module. This module may look familiar to some people that have engaged with performance testing, specifically leveraging HP Performance Center, not just the LoadRunner site product. But for most of the QA organization, this is going to be new territory, new ground, so this will look new. If we think about what we've discovered, specifically from the UCMDB information, we really have a detailed understanding of the application footprint. So the application under test and its host, its linkages, service calls, etc. That information has been provided to us by the UCMDB. So now we can go in and we can look to configure some of our QA or our test environment. So with our test resources, we could come in now and we can go into AUT host and we can start to lay out those components that make up a logical test environment for the QA staff and organization. Specifically, I'm going to be showing you just our test application. It's a banking application that we call Advantage Online Banking, or AOB. You can see that I've already predefined some AUT host. So we have the AOB web tier, database, business tier, and services. We have those mapped to a machine or host. by IP. This is a very small demo environment that I'm leveraging, so that's why you would see different machine names and IPs. If we wanted to have these to be separate hosts, more scaled or traditional type environment where everything's not running on the same machine, that is definitely supported. And then we can see, the different platforms and OSs that may be making up a what is currently a composite application. So, it may not all be Windows based, it may not all be AIX. We have the ability to create and customize what those host environments look like, and kind of link those together to an AUT pool, which is next. And the AUT pool allows us to segment out the different AUT hosts into logical arrangements of applications, or swim lanes for that matter. You can see my Advantage Online Banking application. It has 4 hosts tied to it. We can always break into the details. We can see the linked hosts. We can see how everything really forms together to make up this test environment that I'm creating underneath lab management. So that's really the extent of what needs to be assembled to track your host and your host pools from a configuration standpoint for lab management. Next, we'll look at the lab management functionality as it exists in application lifecycle management, the product. So if we jump over to application lifecycle management, and specifically an application lifecycle management project that's been configured to use lab management, everything will look very similar. You have access to everything from requirements through defects, but more importantly, what we're going to focus on for the lab management criteria is our lab resources. So of course, if we look under lab resources, we can start with our testing host. These are the hosts that allow us to do the automated test execution. So regardless if it's a functional test, performance test, when it comes to our lab environment and what makes up our lab environment that we use on a day-to-day basis, we can manage all our systems in one location, and that happens to be our testing hosts. So we can see, the testing host name, the status, if it's operational, if we have it down for maintenance for any reason, etc. We can see the purpose. You can see our lab 1, our lab 2 are really geared towards business process testing, quick test, professional, and unified functional testing. So that's really a functional test machine. We also have our LTS servers, and so that's going to be, load generators, controllers, etc. for the performance testing. But once again, we're managing our lab environment in one ALM project. So we're keeping everything tightly organized and really presenting it regardless of what type of testing we're executing against. We're really keeping all our assets in a consistent manner and managed in a consistent manner. The next thing we want to look at for lab management is the AUT environment. So we've specified our AUT hosts and our host pools. Now we can come in and we can really give access to the tester those AUT environments. So we can have them come in and understand these are the environments that we've built out. So of course, Advantage, which is mapping over to our AOB host pool. And then we can set parameters. So as we start to engage or test against this, we can come in and we can look at the parameters that make up certain pointers to environments like a URL, an IP address, anything that would be needed as far as criteria to execute against this environment that we're going to provision. And of course, we can configure all the detailed information like any other module in ALM as far as what's required fields, non-required fields, everything's configurable just like any other module would be under ALM. The next thing we want to look at is really going to be around testing and test execution. We've defined the lab environment. We've given access to the tester, the lab environment. Next, we want to look at how would they leverage this lab environment for their test cases. So test plan, not a lot of changes here. I really want to just come here and show test plan and show some of the drop downs and, really show that there's nothing that's going to change between creating your test scripts, managing and storing your test scripts. If we look at test lab, very similar. So there's no differences here on, what we're going to be doing as far as, configuring our test, executing our test. It looks very similar. I have one load regression test that's a performance test, and I have a couple of functional regression tests. But that's going to be very apparent to the same potential version of ALM that you're using today. Not a lot of differences there. Where we really get involved with HP application lifecycle lab management is around build verification. So that's going to be the new submodule that you're going to find under testing. If we look at this, very similar to how we have it in Test Lab, you have build verification suites, which is a new concept or new terminology. But the layout is going to be very test set based. So you can see some of the controls even look like Test Lab management. The differences here is we're going to the next level. We're taking all our test sets that we built and we're arranging them into a way where we can provision an automated environment and then also describe to that automated environment which test sets we're going to execute against it. So if we look at our details, this is our build verification suite name. This is going to be an Advantage online banking suite of tests that we're going to run for nightly build. So as we get a nightly build, we're going to provision an environment, load that build, and then we're going to also describe what test sets we want to execute after that environment is provisioned. If we look at our functional test sets, very similar. We've selected our 2 functional test sets that we've created under the test lab. And the same is true with our performance test. Now, when we look at our performance test, we're going to see it's our Advantage nightly load test. Once again, the same test set that we've created in the test lab. Now, where it gets interesting is we want to come over to our requested host. So, with these automated tests, we have to have host available. So, for this situation, because we have both functional test and performance tests, we're going to need load controllers, generators, and then also our unified functional testing or quick test professional product. So any test host that's required, we can lay out here. Of course, we've made it simple. We've have it set up to auto match. Once again, you can define key testing host if you have any kind of specific configurations or requirements. But we're just going to keep it very basic here and make sure we can just pick one of our open and available testing hosts to execute essentially this build verification suite. And of course, with every module or submodule inside of ALM, you have the history tab. So we have that audit ability to see when changes are made to these build verification suites. Now, if we want to run this, very similar to how we provision a test run or test execution in Test Lab, we're going to go ahead and kick off run. Now, what it's going to do is it's going to look and it says, hey, we're going to either select a new time slot or look at a reserved time slot. This is going to be kind of a new time slot. We're going to run this for 30 minutes, and it knows that we've requested 4 hosts. We can also tie in to whatever that provisioned environment is that we're going to be testing against. So our AUT environment configuration, we're going to come in and, just to keep things simple, I'm going to pick our Advantage. And of course, this could be broken out by various swim lanes. So we know we need to target certain test sets in certain component test environments or system test environments or performance test environments. We have the ability to come in and really define those environments and swim lanes. So it's just a matter of selecting which target AUT we want to execute against. I'm going to pick our local QA environment. Okay. Now, the next thing we need to do is calculate and make sure that both our testing host and our AUT environment are going to be available from a resource standpoint. So we can calculate the availability and our time slot can be reserved. So I'm going to go ahead and hit run. And what this is going to do is basically create a time slot. So very similar to how time slots are managed in Performance Center. It's going to go in and create a brand new time slot for us. It's going to take those environments and bring them down and hold those really for our test execution. And then it's going to give us an execution report. It's going to keep us up to date with the execution status of these environments. So right now we're running our nightly regression basic. So it's in the process of taking our testing host, targeting our lab environment, and running our test set. We have the interval, so we can set our interval refresh rate so that gives us constant information around how these tests are executing. But once again, because we have this configured as a nightly build, you could really think about this being very hands-off. This is just a basic regression that we want to run nightly every time we get a build. So from our standpoint, we can schedule this in the future. We can go home and basically in the morning we'll have a report, a detailed report, the execution report from the build verification suite that's going to tell us what the state of our regression environment is. So that's really where we could start our day as far as understanding what changes happened when we took the new build. Did we break anything that was already been tested? Did we increase performance, etc.? I'm going to go ahead and stop this so we don't have to sit and wait for all of it to run. You know, this could be a 30-minute test, but a very small window for a webinar. I just really wanted to give you the view of what the build verification suite functionality and lab management functionality provides you in ALM 11.5. And you can see our time slot is available for us and calculated, just to let you know how our test environments and our AUT environments are being provisioned and maintained for us. And of course, no real changes in test runs. You'll get your build verification suite report just like you do any kind of other breakdown or information as far as the result sets and how they exist in HPALM. So that gives you an idea of how you can take UCMDB data and information and bring that back to the ALM space, the QA space, and being able to have a good understanding of the lab environments that you're going to be testing against, the configurations that a production environment may have or may maintain, and then really be able to have an automated way to do your test case and test lab management in an automated fashion going forward. So that was HP UCMDB and how it relates to quality assurance and how it can help you address some of those pain points that you may be feeling in your current environment today. So if you have any questions, feel free to contact us at Advanced Marketplace.
Thank you for joining us for this fourth of 4 CMDB webinar series. Be sure to view the other 3 webinars from this series.